Google has decided that it will cave in to pressure from advertisers when it comes to controversial content on YouTube, and it will pull ads from videos that have controversial content on them. From Reuters, Google apologizes to ad clients for YouTube content fiasco. Google apologized on Monday for allowing ads to appear alongside offensive videos on YouTube as more high-profile firms such as Marks and Spencer and HSBC pulled advertising for British markets from Google sites. The British government has suspended its advertising on YouTube after some public sector ads appeared next to videos carrying homophobic and anti-Semitic messages, prompting a flood of major companies to follow suit. Britain is the largest market for Alphabet's incorporated Google outside the United States, generating $7.8 billion mainly from advertising in 2016, or nearly 9% of the US giant's global revenue. I would like to apologize. Okay. Besides well-known British brands pulling the plug, some of the world's biggest advertising companies responsible for placing vast amounts of marketing material for clients said they were reviewing how they worked for Google. The boycott is the latest clash between advertising companies and internet giants that have built up dominant positions in digital advertising by offering not only huge audiences but also the ability to apply their user data to make ads more targeted and relevant. For big advertising groups, internet firms are both a client and a competitor, while traditional media groups such as a newspaper and general online news publishers are having to compete with them for online dollars. And then, from the Hill, Google announced on Monday that it would be introducing new updates and policies for its advertising platform in the wake of a controversy spurred by ads appearing next to extremist content on YouTube. I like how the Hill, which is a site aimed at those on Capitol Hill, congressmen, senators, representatives, staff, all that kind of stuff, how they say extremist content. We believe the combination of these new policies and controls will significantly strengthen our ability to help advertisers reach audiences at scale while respecting their value. Earlier in the week, high-profile brands including McDonald's, The Guardian, and HSBC pulled advertisements from YouTube after a Financial Times report revealed that their ads may have gone towards controversial and extremist groups. Schindler said that the company will raise its ad policy standards, its enforcement of these policies, and new controls for advertisers on the platform. So what this means is that Google, one of the biggest freedom of speech advocates in the world, a company that has fought lengthy battles against countries like Egypt, Turkey, Pakistan, China, and stood its ground when it came to freedom of speech. A company that has poured vast quantities of money in the fight for freedom of speech online. A company that was instrumental in defeating things like the Stop Online Piracy Act, ACTA, and pushing for the United States to adopt the current rules of net neutrality, as well as Microsoft and other companies, alongside Microsoft and other companies. Google has been a champion for freedom of speech all over the world, and yet now they're succumbing to corporate pressure when it comes to freedom of speech, and they surrendered. Already the situation on YouTube is that if you make controversial videos, you are likely to get those videos targeted as not being advertiser friendly, and it goes beyond that. My worry, personally, as someone who does make videos on controversial topics, and I'm not talking here about Donald Trump, believe it or not, the videos that I've gotten targeted for are videos on the conflicts in Africa, Middle East, and Europe, Eastern Europe to be specific. Not anything Trump related, which is a bit hilarious, as you'd assume those would be more controversial, but no. What's controversial is talking about real human conflicts that get real people killed, and caring about those conflicts. That's controversial. And my worry, as is the worry of other people, is that it's not just a case anymore of losing your ad revenue. That, YouTube would already remove your ad revenue from videos that were controversial. That was the case for a long period of time, for years, and now it's only going to get worse. But my bigger worry is that it's not going to end there. It's not going to end there. In fact, it's going to go to the point where people like me and activists, when it comes to these conflicts, activists who we rely on, who a lot of people rely on for knowing the truth of what's going on in a lot of these conflicts, because the main media organizations don't care to report on them. Like, when was the last time you heard the report on Ukraine in the mainstream media? When it wasn't Trump related, that is. When it didn't have to do with someone from Trump's team, but on Ukraine in itself, just because of Ukrainian issues. When was the last time you heard about that? Haven't done so in quite a while. And so social media activists, social media users are instrumental in getting the information out there. And yet increasingly people like that have been targeted. My worry is not so much that I'll lose advertising for one YouTube video or another. My worry is that I might start to lose my channel. And I do know that there are people on YouTube that have already been put in that position where people have tried to shut down their channel. Consider this. There's a YouTube channel by the name of Southfront. They provide factual information on a lot of the conflicts going on around the world. And yet, not only has their website been targeted, not only has their Wikipedia page been targeted, not only has their PayPal account been targeted, but they've also been targeted on YouTube. Their YouTube channel has been targeted. And they don't even run ads on their YouTube videos. And now Google doing this, ostensibly in the name of fighting hate speech and extremism, well, that's just giving more power to the people that would love nothing more than to shut down YouTube channels like Southfront, or mine, or many others that want to talk about facts. The moment corporations or governments decide what is and what isn't acceptable in terms of free speech is the moment you start going down the path of dictatorships, of authoritarian governments. And you might believe that, some of you might believe that it is acceptable to censor specific speech. But I point out that there are many organizations, freedom speech organizations like the ACLU, that fought for the freedom of speech of people like the Klan. Not because they agreed with their heinous views, but rather because they've understood that the moment the government can decide what is and what isn't acceptable in the free speech realm, is the moment everyone loses and democracy loses. Now we live in an era where it's not even the governments that are deciding what is and what isn't acceptable, although there is certainly legislation on a European Union level that would ban, that would put significant fines on social media companies for not taking a stance on hate speech on those platforms, but goes even further. Nowadays, we live in an era where the corporations can decide what is and what isn't acceptable. Corporations that increasingly are far more powerful than governments even are. Corporations that control governments. Because politicians are bought and sold, the mainstream media is bought and sold. And to give you an idea, Keith Olbermann made a clip years ago with respect to Citizens United and had this to say on the issue of the internet.
So with critics silenced, then bought off, and even the town assessor who lives next door to you elected to office with campaign funds 99.9% drawn from corporate coffers, what are you going to do about it? The internet. The internet. Ask them about the internet in China. Kiss net neutrality goodbye. Kiss whatever right to privacy on the net you think you currently have goodbye. And anyway, what are you going to complain about if you don't even know it happened? In the new world unveiled this morning by John Roberts, who stops Rupert Murdoch from buying the Associated Press? This decision, which in mythology would rank somewhere between the bottomless pit and the opening of Pandora's box, got next to no coverage in the right-wing media today, almost nothing in the middle, and a lot less than necessary on the left. The right wing won't even tell their constituents that they're being sold into bondage alongside the rest of us. Why should they? For them, the start of this will be wonderful.
Keith Olbermann's words turned out to be prophetic in more ways than one on the subject of the internet. When a company like Google, that defined the internet as we know it to a very significant degree, when they bow down to corporate pressure, we certainly are living in the twilight zone. We're living in an era where freedom of speech increasingly is getting targeted, where the only freedom of speech you have is what people consider acceptable speech. Well, when people turn to that kind of thinking, then was that really that far removed from communist Eastern Europe? I grew up in a country following the revolution, a revolution in which people took down a communist government that would torture people in prison for their viewpoints, for daring to speak up, and tortured in horrific ways. That in which everyone was under mass surveillance. Everyone was informing on everyone. Everyone had an informant in the dossier. This is the age we live in. And it's not happening in communist countries anymore. It's in Western democracies that this is occurring. It's not even governments that are doing it. It's corporations. It's the corporations that get to decide this. Keith Olbermann ultimately ended up being removed from MSNBC because, hey, we can't allow the truth teller to speak his mind on our network. We'd rather have someone like Rachel Maddow or someone like Joe Scarborough, tools of the establishment, tools of the corporate interests of the media. That is the age we live in, and where YouTube channels get increasingly targeted for controversial topics. You know, if some people, and the only defense people have on these social media platforms, on YouTube, is their support base. But their support base, people can be fickle on that issue. And more importantly than that, actually, is that a lot of people on YouTube are not big channels. They're not the kind of channels where there'd be a lot of angry voices if they got targeted. Not everyone's a PewDiePie, or a Total Biscuit, or a Philip DeFranco. Now, very few channels actually are. In fact, there's a great deal of channels that a vast majority of channels that are below 50,000, 100,000 subscribers. What power do they have? If you have a lot of subscribers, if you have a lot of people following, then obviously you're protected by your subscribers, because people will notice if your channel gets shut down. For someone like me that has just 20,000 subscribers, I'm a dead man walking. There's no good outcome, no positive path, no way this ends well. And make no mistake, once they're done screwing over the smaller channels on YouTube that dare speak up on various issues, once they're done gutting us, they'll go after the big channels for whatever reasons. Hell, they actually did. They went after PewDiePie because of a joke. And they went after him in a way that does affect him. Now, of course, PewDiePie can survive financially. Many people can't. People like myself, if we lost our YouTube channels, we'd be completely destroyed on a financial level. Someone like PewDiePie, who makes probably millions of dollars each year, he doesn't. So what's going to happen. I expect that YouTube will increasingly target controversial topics on YouTube in the name of corporate interests. I expect that there will be a substantial number of people in the US, European population that will be fine with that, because, hey, screw these people that have dissenting political opinions, right? We no longer live in the era of free speech. You know, freedom of speech is not free at all. There's a reason why people died for it. There's a reason why people went to jail for it. And yet now it seems that people that speak up are the ones increasingly that are going to go to jail. And with thunderous applause as well. That's how democracy dies, with thunderous applause. Costin here on Serious Gaming, signing out. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video. Thank you all for watching. And if you like my content, consider supporting me via PayPal and Patreon while you still can, while there is a YouTube